You're listening to The Social Workers on WCDB Albany.
And welcome back to WCDB Albany. My name is Eric Hardiman, and I'm the co-host of our show, The Social Workers Live Radio Talk Show. I'm here with Alyssa Lotmore, my regular co-host. Welcome back, Alyssa.
Hey, Eric.
We're excited to be here in the studio today. We've got a lot going on today. We've got a couple different folks that we'll be interviewing today. And is there anything else that we want to announce before we start? Anything about the show, about the upcoming season?
That we have a lot of exciting guests, and especially alumni who are coming back to be on the show. So both our guests today are alums of the university, the School of Social Welfare, and it's always exciting because the topics are always different. So it's great to see that our alums with a social work degree have gone into so many different areas and are sharing their knowledge and expertise in these areas that they're in.
It is exciting. That's one of the things that we like to do here at the show is keep connected and remain connected to folks that have graduated from the University of Albany, and more specifically from the School of Social Welfare, our home. So I'd like to officially welcome our first guest today. We have with us here in the studio Fred Erlich. Fred is founder and CEO of Living Resources, a non-for-profit health and human services agency which has helped over 5,000 people with developmental disabilities, including autism spectrum disorder and brain injuries throughout the capital region here in New York State. Earlier in his career, Fred served as Assistant Director for Program Development for the New York State Office of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities, and Executive Director of the New York State Chapter of the National Society for Autistic Children. Mr. Erlich holds a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's in social welfare, and a master's in business administration, all from the State University at Albany, right here. He was named as a Distinguished Alumni. He's received a Alumni Excellence Award from the School of Social Welfare and the Rockefeller College. He has served as an adjunct professor at the School of Business, has taught human resource and organizational management classes, has received numerous awards throughout his career. I'll give you a couple others just as highlights. In 2016, Fred received the Excellence in Public Service Award from the University at Albany's Alumni Association. In 2010, his organization, Living Resources, received the 2010 Achievement Award as the Best Not-for-Profit of the Year from the Business Review, and numerous other awards throughout your career. So, Fred, we are very excited to have you with us. Welcome to the Social Workers.
Thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, as Eric mentioned, you're the CEO and founder of Living Resources. So the year was 1973. What was the reason for forming this organization? And for those who don't even know, give us a little background about what Living Resource is, too.
Living Resources is a not-for-profit agency that provides quality of life services for individuals with developmental disabilities and brain injury. And we strive ourselves on being able to give people happiness and joy in a safe place, a nurturing environment, and to give the families peace of mind. That's what we're all about. Presently we serve 2,000 individuals in a variety of services throughout the communities, from Warren County all the way down to Westchester County, mostly in the capital region. 850 employees currently. And what happened in 1973, which is interesting, is that it actually has to do with civil rights. There was a real big energy going on around civil rights from young people and also government. So the first thing that happened, there's several things that happened. One is that the civil rights movement, which won for development disabled people. Secondly was that the parents sued New York State in court and said the services are subhuman that the state was providing. And then third was Governor Kerry agreed to a consent decree saying we will abide by a much more humane system of not-for-profit agencies providing services and releasing 25,000 individuals from state institutions that weren't getting very good care. Another thing that happened right after that was in 1974, the federal government declared or signed into law education for all.
Right.
So up till then, if you had a disabled child, that child was not going to school from kindergarten on, they were getting nothing. Now they're eligible for education for all. And the fifth thing was I really had a passion to serve people. That's deep within me and my heart. I really get a joy out of helping people and community organization. And I have that was it. And I got very fortunate to work with one of my professors from the School of Social Work who wanted to start this agency, which is a not-for-profit, and we've grown from there.
So I want to go back just a little bit. When you first came to the University at Albany, what was it you were interested in studying at the beginning, and how did you get to social work, and how did this community organization idea come to you?
Well, that's interesting. Now what happened was I really was interested in political science. Political science, business, and people's rights, and helping people doing valued things. So they all kind of mumbled together. And I didn't take a path of going to law school. I didn't take the exams, wasn't interested, but I felt that I could meet my need for serving people by going to social work. And that's how I wound up in social work. But I have a really love of political science and laws and what court cases are.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that time, the late 60s here at UAlbany, was probably a time, it was before our time, Alyssa and I, but I would imagine a time when the campus was coming alive with free speech, with student activism, and with, a growing empowerment of the student body. And so was that part of your journey into social work as well?
It was, in talking to people and thinking about what my career path would be. I didn't want to do something. I wanted to do something that was going to be helpful to people who had needs. And I do have a capacity to work on things and get things happen, so I was able to use that skill set to help other people, which is an amazing joy for me. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So I'm going to back up again to 1973, and you had shared that you had a budget of about $25,000 and a staff of 2. And now you are an organization with a $45 million budget and a staff of 850 people. So what do you attribute to the success of how this agency has grown from your vision when you were a student to now what Living Resources is today?
Well, thank you. I think that the vision is never changing. It's a vision of what are we going to... We agreed that our whole purpose to be a company is to provide people with, high-quality services and nurturing environment and have a wonderful life despite their disability. And for their parents, have peace of mind. So we're always going back to the well. We're going back to the individuals. What do you need? We're going back to the families. How are we doing? How could we get better? Mm-hmm. So the growth of the agency is constantly in a natural state of listening and trying to adapt. So, and that's part of what we do. Obviously, a lot of what we do is a lot of getting things approved and funded, and it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
When you have a new idea, people aren't ready to adapt. And we've done a couple of really exciting things over the years that have made a real difference. And we've struggled to get approval for these things, but that's part of what keeps us going and growing. So it's just, people ask me, did you ever think you would run a $45 million organization? I said, I really don't think in that way. I think about what is it we need to do to help more people. And to listen to families and get it right, improve. Continuous improvement is is a motto I have, and envisioning new ideas to serve people better.
And that work is not easy work. I mean, it's, the administrative work, the leadership, the financial oversight. social workers are often trained to go into government roles, to go into service provision, to sort of slot themselves into existing jobs within an existing structure in the human services, and what I see from what I know of your history is that you went into this with a different vision, and not an easy. You certainly didn't take the easy path.
Right. Again, looking at what existed when I started out with all the individuals living in these institutions, which was the state had developed the system and all other states developed the same system. But saying, well, this is not helpful and right for the individuals, how do we adapt ourselves to serve the individuals? What do the families say they need? How are we seeing the individuals improving? So one of the great joys I had, a couple of them. One is early on in my development, we had somebody move in from a state institution, and they said he had a 51 IQ. And I said, okay, well, let's see what we could do with that. It's pretty limited, although we have people with much lower IQs. And Paul, within 6 months, Paul is measuring an IQ of 81. Now, how could an IQ move up? And then a few years later, he wants to get an apartment, and he gets an apartment. He gets a job in a gas station, and I haven't seen him since. So there's a lot I found out about the individual has a lot of drive, and we need to listen to how they could grow and develop. And to say they're this level doesn't mean they're actually that. They have some wonderful skill sets we need to help them get through. So the job development, we started developing jobs for people in 1986.
Okay.
And we're still doing it. We're very robust at it. We're helping 190 people with employment, with all kinds of employers. So if there's any employers listening out there, we could find you a good worker. So keep that in mind.
So tell us, let me interrupt you there and just tell us a little bit about that. Tell us how you work with employers and what that process is like to develop those relationships.
Okay. Well, we have, we developed, early on we developed it and it was a struggle, but now the state is very supportive. And we have a program called Support Employment, and there's a lot of opportunities to develop jobs and to support people in jobs and stay with them. So they get it and can go through transitions when there's a change in a manager. And so we're talking to a lot of employers. We have an advisory group of employers, and we're making a lot of progress getting people jobs. So we look for jobs. We also have a program which we started with the College of St. Rose.
Okay.
Which is called the College Experience Program, and we've since expanded to SUNY Schenectady, and we're going to expand next year to another college. Since the ink's not dry, I'm not going to mention the name.
Okay.
But at that point, we'll have a capacity to serve 150 students in a 2-year sort of training program. So the beauty of the program we have with St. Rose for the last 14 years is that we are getting people ready for jobs.
Okay.
We're teaching them a lot of executive management skills, and we're also giving them a lot of job internships. So by the time they graduate in 2 years from this program, they have a resume. They've had job interviews. They've learned how to dress for the job, get ready for the job. So we're getting a lot of success because we're doing a lot of prep work for people.
Right.
So people see we're getting successful candidates and more people are talking to us. I don't know if I answered that correctly.
Absolutely.
That did.
Yeah.
And you talk about the success that you've been having, but after 45-year history, what are some of the challenges that your organization has faced? Because it can't always go so smoothly.
It doesn't go smoothly at all.
That would be nice.
Sometimes we have an idea, like we had this idea about a community integrated volunteer day program without walls, we call it, and it took me about 5 years before the state was able to hear the value of it. And I had to sit on this idea. I saw it in Connecticut. I was really excited about it. But now it's a very robust program supported by the state. So that was a challenge, getting that going. Getting things going is a challenge all the time. One of the biggest challenges now is what you're going to have if you have a very large organization. Budgets and employees. So with a 2.85 unemployment rate in Albany County, this is really challenging to find enough workers for enough employees for all the jobs. So that is one of the biggest challenges, and there's a lot there, and also living within a budget, and there's an awful lot of regulations. So those are challenges.
And do you get a sense, you mentioned in talking about the history of the organization and the history of your work, you mentioned other states and what other states were doing for folks with disabilities and developmental disabilities. Do you get a sense of where New York fits in nationally, and sort of how, what that larger national context means for New York State?
Yeah. Well, New York State has done some lead things. They were very assertive in getting federal Medicaid money, which is good and bad. It's good because it's a lot of federal Medicaid money, and that helps build services. It's bad because now you have to live with all the rules of federal Medicaid money. So that's one thing I've seen. The state, starting back with Rockefeller, has always been progressive about if the federal government says, here's mandated programs, here's options, the state would go, we want them all. Now, that somewhat has been a problem more recently, where the state goes, well, we don't know if we want to have them pay for all these things. And there's so New York has been positive and assertive in a lot of good ways. In some ways, it's become very difficult following all these Medicaid rules. So I, would say they're still probably in the A to B range of states, but some of the smaller states that we visited, which had done things in a more progressive way, and we've learned from that as well. So it's a mixed bag.
Right.
There's people you can learn from. I learned supported employment from Virginia. They were into supported employment early, and we went and saw it in the 80s and said, that's really good stuff. So you can learn. I learned some stuff from Colorado about developing technology into group homes.
And the supported employment piece, for listeners, if that's a new concept to you, supported employment is also recognized as an evidence-based practice. So there's a lot of research support, empirical studies that back up the notion of providing employment for people and then providing them with the support and placement support, so that employment becomes an important part of recovery and rehab.
It is, and an early thing that was most wonderful when we first started the program, we had 6 people leave workshops to get jobs, and I went out. I had 3 young children, and they said, "Come out to dinner with us, Fred." And I had a very tight budget, so I went there and had a appetizer. And they had a full meal, and it was because they had jobs.
Interesting.
They could buy that full meal. It was their choice. That was the most wonderful experience, that people, purchasing power.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Living Resources has challenged itself with is that we have looked at, well, what jobs do we have that people with disabilities could be doing? So recently,
within the organization.
We have a lot of jobs. Why don't we let's walk our talk.
Yeah.
So we've always had people in jobs that have to do with office type jobs, but recently we hired 2 people to be full-time maintenance people on our maintenance crew, painting and landscaping and other things. And we make accommodations, so one of them doesn't have a car. We figured out how you do that. So I encourage anybody listening, if you're a not-for-profit, think about how people with disabilities could be part of your workforce.
Yeah.
We feel very good about that.
Well, that message of inclusion is important, too,
Yeah.
that if the work your organization is doing is to promote the inclusion of persons with disabilities, then you sort of have to walk the walk and talk the
That's
talk
right.
too at the same time. Yeah.
And also with brain injuries, we do the same. We have brain injured people who have a lot of physical ailments from the brain injury. Some RPI graduates, and some of those we've gotten good jobs. I know one gentleman has a part-time job at CDPHP, and they love him there.
Great.
Another person's at Pioneer, and I name 80 or 90 companies that are really happy with the employees we've sent them.
Now, I want to back up to you just were talking about the brain injury, and Living Resources has an extensive acquired and traumatic brain injury programs.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and the services you offer?
Sure. So we, about 20 years ago, maybe it was a little longer now, I was approached by Sunnyview. They said, we have people coming from rehab from a brain injury, and you seem to have a very strong supported employment program. Could you get them jobs? And we started working with them and said, they're really very similar to the people we're already serving. So we started working very closely with brain injured individuals, and we have a very active community integrated program where a lot of people do come to our office, and they're active in cooking classes. There's a Brainwaves, which is a music group. They're doing volunteer work for other people. Some people are getting employment, and it's really what we do. We do a lot of that. There's 120 people that are in our brain injury support program. People who have apartments, we could support them in their apartments. We work with veterans with brain injuries. We're always actively looking to help veterans.
Great.
So we think that, and we have one of the things we do is art. We have a very large art program, which we started 20 years ago. And we have actually at Stratton VA, we have an art class for disabled veterans. So they're part of our art classes as well.
So if you've just tuned in, we're talking with Fred Erlich. Fred is founder and CEO of Living Resources, which is a not-for-profit health and human service agency which helps folks with developmental disabilities, including autism spectrum disorder and brain injuries throughout the capital region, and I believe throughout the state. Is that right?
True. As far down as Westchester and up to Warren County.
Okay.
At this point.
So when you think, I'm just listening to your words, I'm thinking about an audience that maybe the general public who maybe does not fully understand the nature of developmental disabilities. Maybe if folks haven't had that in their family, or if they have not, there's myths and stereotypes about what a developmental disability is, what autism might be. Are there messaging needs that you can talk about in terms of what sort of message would you like to get out there to the general population to teach them a little bit about this population?
Okay. Encapsulate in terms of developmental disability means that this happened when you were under the age of 21.
Okay.
And that's the key there. So if you have a birth, something happened at birth, which led you to become a low, below normal IQ.
Okay.
That's developmentally disabled. If you had autism, if you had Asperger's, if you had epilepsy as a child, if you had cerebral palsy, if you had a neurological impairment, a learning disability, that's the whole, or brain injury, you fell off a swing, right? A brain injury. These are the factors why you call it developmentally disabled. I had a family member who developed epilepsy as an adult.
Okay.
So they're not developmentally disabled because they already went to college. They already had developed. That's why they call it developmental disability.
Yeah.
So that's what is important to know about what makes up and constitutes a developmental disability, something that happened before age 21 that profoundly affects the rest of your life and has to be recognized and worked through. Let's call it work through.
Sure. We've also done some interviews here on the show and in other domains within social work with people that are interested in caregiving. And I wonder, does Living Resources also provide some focus on caregiver support? And and the sort of range of needs that caregivers have for family members or other folks that might be caring for someone with developmental disability?
So a lot of the people we serve are not in our program, not in our residential program. We have 250 people in our 46 group homes, but we also have people in apartments. We have people living at home. We have about 250, 300 people in our day opportunity program. We pick people up from home and bring them back home. So we're doing a lot of work with families whose adult children are living at home. And we do community support. We are there. We are working with families who have adults living at home. We have an after-school program for disabled children. So we're doing a lot, and we're happy to help any family who has a child at home with a developmental disability. Call us, and maybe we'll help you. We like to be networkers, even if we don't have that service.
Sure.
We know who would have that service.
Yeah.
And as we're running out of time, so I want to sort of wrap up with what should our listeners know today about Living Resources? It also includes some contact information as well. But what's going on right now that you'd like people to sort of know this is happening right now at Living Resources?
Well, I'd like you to know that there's a great success and opportunities for people with disabilities to have a full and productive life. So it's just one part of their life is the disability, but the rest is what could they do to have a joyful life. I think it's there's great opportunities for social workers. We haven't talked about that. I'm a social worker, and we have other social workers working for us. And there's many opportunities to become social entrepreneurs and develop new services that meet people's needs. We're also very interested in technology. How could technology help us support people living at home, whether they're developmentally disabled or elderly? So we've been thinking a lot about that. We have an overnight module where we help people that live alone to get support overnight. And we also have, we're working with robotics. We acquired 2 robots from Misty Robotics Company, and we're figuring out program use for the robots to help people with disabilities remain independent. So that's an area we've looked at a lot. And all the technology, we have a smart house in Guilderland where we're doing a lot with technology, how people could make command things in their environment. In other words, somebody who's quadriplegic who could turn their lights on and off, their fan, make phone calls, listen to music, shades up and down, give commands through the systems, Alexa, I was looking for the word. We've developed,
Bluetooth,
integrated these in through Bluetooth, so there's a lot going on there. How could we help people remain independent and use between direct care people and technology to make them remain in their own home? That's the message there. We all have challenges, every one of us, and we could help out to overcome or get around those challenges, ameliorate them. So that's really important. And again, it's a great profession for social workers to be involved in helping people with disabilities and brain injury to have a full and productive life.
And partly what I also hear in your own personal career trajectory as a social worker is, because you mentioned this as a great area for social workers to look into, is that I think, it seems from my observation here, that you've been able to fashion a career for yourself that has some micro level content, which certainly has to do with care provision and direct services to people with disabilities and their families. But you're also really working at the network level and at the community level and at the policy level. And it seems to me like you are really doing innovative social work that integrates micro, meso, and macro layers and levels of social work together, which not all careers in social work do. And so what I hear is a real opportunity for social workers to think about work that happens on multiple levels.
You're absolutely right, and thank you. It's critical that you get the macro level right, because there's individuals, they need help every day, and they need to be safe. So we have to focus on the macro level, but we do create new things, and we invite in social workers or others who want to look at their ideas, how they could build a career. And we could help them. They might be part of Living Resources, and we may just be helping them on their own, because I do strongly support social entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So we'd like to get you to the School of Social Welfare too, and get you to come talk to some of our students, and we'll ask you back to do that, and hopefully get you back to the radio station too.
And for those interested, is it www.livingresources.org?
It is.
Okay.
And I want to tell you that we've worked very hard over the last year, and now we have a new website. We've developed a new website. It's been on for 2 weeks. And it's based on the idea of get in, find what you want, and get out. And it's also ADA compliant, so you could listen to it. There's a button on the right bottom. You could raise the volume. You could hear it speak the words to you. Could change the colors, the fonts, and everything. It's pretty cool.
I'm looking at it right now, actually. So it looks pretty awesome. So I'm going to explore it a little more after the show. But thank you.
We've been talking with Fred Erlich, who's founder and CEO of Living Resources here in the Capital Region, which is a nonprofit health and human service agency for folks with developmental disabilities. Very exciting conversation, Fred. We've really enjoyed having you here in the studio and telling us about your work.
Thank you so much, Eric and Alicia, for your time and giving me this opportunity. And it's great to be a social worker, and I encourage people to have a vision of their future, a broad vision of their future, because it's possible.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we love having alums on. So this was an even better segment. So thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to the Social Workers Live Radio Talk Show. I'm Eric Hardiman, and I'm here with Alyssa Lotmore, and we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with you, so please stay tuned. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to The Social Workers on WCDB Albany.